What's up, guys? Skippy Africanus here, and today we're going to be going over the Carrack 300 from Modern Warfare 2, or as it's known in real life, the Walther Mw2. Now, last week while talking about the FJX Imperium, or M200 Intervention as it's actually called, I mentioned that that specific gun was quite popular, despite the fact that it's not at all a very common gun, and the WA2000 is pretty much that, but even more extreme. You see, the WA2000 has been featured in plenty of media, much more so than the Intervention, I would say, and with the amount of games and movies it's been in, one would assume that this gun has seen some significant use. However, much like the Intervention, this sniper rifle is quite the enigma. So exactly what is the WA2000? Why does it exist? How does it work? And most importantly, just how common of a rifle is this thing? Let's get into it. The WA2000 is a sniper rifle, and it comes in 3 chamberings, at least if we're talking both the first and second generation gun. You have 7.62x51 NATO and 7.5x55 Swiss for the smaller chamberings, and then you have the more popular 300 Winchester Magnum chambering, which compared to your standard 7.62 NATO is quite the hefty cartridge. Now, I don't need to tell you that this rifle certainly has a weird look going on with it. I mean, in fact, prior to looking into this thing, I really didn't like it because, well, it just looks weird. However, looking into the sniper itself, you can appreciate the weird look it has going on with it because each aspect of that weird look has to do with attempting to make this gun the best sniper rifle it could possibly be. So let's go ahead and break this gun down into the core components that make it look so weird, starting with the barrel. Now, the best option for accuracy when it comes to your barrel is by, going with a free float system. This prevents stress on the barrel caused by things like bipods that will, affect your accuracy. The WA2000, however, does not use a free float barrel, instead opting to use a very rigid system based around locking the barrel in with this top and bottom rail, which in turn gives it that weird front end look. Now, this still isn't necessarily better than the free float barrel option, but keep in mind that at the time of this rifle's development, it was one of the first generation of high performance sniper rifles. So not everything is going to be, perfect by today's standards. Now, going further into this rifle, and another obvious trait is that it is a bullpup. This was done, of course, to allow for a much more compact rifle, as do note, this gun uses a 26-inch long barrel, and it is supposedly not lacking in the trigger pull department despite being a bullpup. Not that bullpups, of course, actually have bad triggers, mind you, unless you have, toddler finger strength. But that being said, even by precision rifle standards, it doesn't sport a bad trigger in the slightest. Now, the next thing that makes this gun look so distinctive is, of course, the stock setup. Now, obviously, as mentioned, you don't want your forend touching the barrel, so they, of course, have attached it to the lower rail. The rear portion features a palm rest to, well, rest the bottom of your hand on, and this weird-looking thing sticking out right here, well, this isn't there just to make the gun look fancy. It's there for actually a special shooting position that gives you a more rigid grip on the gun. This big wood panel functions as your cheek rest as well. Without it, you're just gonna have your face flat against some flat steel. This little nub right here is a rear monopod that's used to give even greater stability while using the bipod, which of course, much like how you don't want the wooden forend touching the barrel, you also don't want this thing touching it either, so they appropriately placed it on the top rail, where it can slide forward and back depending on where you want your bipod to sit while deployed. So all in all, as we can see, though this rifle has some very alien looks going on with it, they all serve a purpose to make this the very best sniper rifle that it could be. At least for the time, of course. But that does leave us with another question, and that is, why did they want this high-end sniper rifle in the first place? Because at the time of this rifle's, creation, I mean, there was definitely sniper rifles around, but the majority of those sniper rifles ended up just being, your standard bolt action, standard just battle rifle that had a scope on. And what really brought about the need for the WA2000 came about after the 1972 Munich Olympics massacre, after it was found out that, Germany did not really have a good way of dealing with terrorist activities, which, of all the things Germany would need to better step up its counter-terrorist activities, a better sniper rifle was one of those needs. And Walther would be the ones to deliver with the WA2000. Funny enough, this also ties into why the gun looks weird, namely with how overcomplicated it is. These guns were never made with the intention of getting a military contract. From its inception, it was designed with police use in mind. Meaning, these guns could be a little more complicated and also just a little more delicate, since police use is going to be way more easier on the gun versus, say, frontline use with the military. Now, all that being said, though, these guns are absurdly complicated to take apart. When it does come down to how they actually function, they are as simple as most other guns. In basic, these work with what's called a short-stroke gas piston, meaning as the gun is fired, some of the gas following the bullet will push against this piece right here. That piece will travel a little ways, pushing this block that is connected to these two arms. While those arms are moving rearward, they're pulling this bolt carrier back, which, via these cams, turns this bolt head until when it has fully rotated, these lugs are not being blocked by metal in the receiver, allowing the whole bolt assembly to move rearwards. After full travel rearward, spring pressure from the recoil spring pushes this whole assembly forward, where it can pick up a new cartridge from the magazine, feed it into the chamber, that bolt head rotates, locking up the whole gun, and you're ready to fire the next shot. Which, another thing to note here while talking about the bolt stripping a cartridge from the magazine is that there is very little angle with the cartridge that is sitting in the magazine. Essentially meaning, it's sitting fairly straight to the chamber. Now, this was done intentionally to prevent as much scratching of the bullet as possible during the feeding process to further help with consistent accuracy. Just another one of those little things with this gun, done to, help it out with making it the best sniper rifle it could possibly be. Now, all that being said, despite the principles around how the gun operates being fairly simple, at the end of the day, this is still a very complicated rifle, which no doubt contributes to its very hefty price tag. Which in the last video, if you remember, I mentioned that this next gun we'll be going over would completely blow the cost of the Shytech M200 Intervention out of the water. So, just how expensive are these guns, you may ask? Well, currently, the Shytech M200 Intervention sits at around the $12,000 mark, whereas when the WA2000s made their debut in the 1980s, they ranged anywhere from $9,000 to $12,500. Now, note, I said in the 1980s, meaning that we have to do that fun little thing called adjusting for inflation, which when you do that, the amount of, $9,000 to $12,500 today would actually be more around $23,000 to $33,000. Though, do note, if you happen to have $23,000 to, $33,000 you're just itching to spend, the current value today on these rifles ranges from $40,000 for the first generation all the way to $75,000 for the second generation rifle. Why are these things so ungodly expensive, you may ask? Well, remember the last question I asked at the start of this video, just how common is this thing? Well, they only made 176 rifles common. These things are an absolute rarity, and the biggest factor is indeed that excessive cost, coupled with the fact that these were solely designed for police use, and more specifically, counter-terrorist police use. So, they already had a very niche audience, and then you start swinging around that excessive cost, and yeah, that's really gonna drive the gun into obscurity real quick. But anyways, I think that is gonna do it for this rather long video, actually, on the Carrack 300 from Modern Warfare 2, or as it's known in real life, the Walther WA2000. I hope you all enjoyed the video as much as I specifically enjoyed making this one, and I'll see you all in the next Guns of Modern Warfare 2 in real life video.